In the year 2178, humanity's reach finally pierced the veil of Earth's atmosphere into deep space, and with it, the stars whispered secrets no one had ever heard. For millennia, Earthlings had looked up in wonder, wondering what else the cosmos might hold. But when they finally reached out, the universe responded, and not kindly. The Galactic Accord was not the welcoming committee humanity had hoped for. From the cold, calculating ships of the Cerati to the towering war beasts of the Kralin, the Accord was an alliance of civilizations that had existed for tens of thousands of years. They viewed the galaxy as a fragile ecosystem, balanced on millennia of treaties, alliances, and rigid social orders. When humanity stumbled into their space, the Accord's leaders viewed them as a blight, unruly, unpredictable, dangerous. The arrival, the first human interstellar vessel, the Pioneer 1, crossed the threshold of known space at the edge of the Viral Cluster, a region already mapped and policed by the Accord. Its crew was filled with hope, curiosity, and a touch of reckless human optimism. Captain Sarah Gwynn, a decorated explorer and engineer, was at the helm, her fingers steady on the controls. As the Pioneer 1 transmitted its first messages, the response was instantaneous, but not in the way they hoped. "We are the Galactic Accord," came the cold, synthesized voice over their comms. "You have breached a protected sector. Identify yourselves and submit to Accord authority." Captain Wen's fingers trembled slightly as she replied, "This is humanity from planet Earth, Sol System. We come in peace and wish to explore." There was silence. Then a mechanical voice broke through again. "You are an anomaly, an unregulated variable in a balanced equation. Submit for inspection." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. None of the Accord species had any precedent for humans, no official files, no classified reports, just silence. The Accord's fear of humanity. At the Accord's command center, on the Citadel station orbiting the core planet Cerathus Prime, Ambassador Aerotel studied the incoming transmissions. His reptilian features twitched in frustration. The humans' language was crude, their customs primitive, yet their persistence unnerved him. Why do they resist conformity? Aerotel muttered to his aide. "Because they are different," the aide replied cautiously. "Unlike our species, they are driven by emotion, unpredictability. They do not follow the patterns of other civilizations." Aerotel frowned. "Exactly why they cannot be trusted. They may appear fragile, but they are capable of rapid, chaotic adaptation. They are wild." The Accord feared chaos above all else. Their vast empire depended on order, laws, peace, predictability. Humanity threatened that order by being inherently untamed. The first skirmish. Tensions escalated quickly. When Pioneer 1 refused to submit to a routine Accord inspection, the Accord dispatched an enforcement squadron, sleek ships armed with plasma cannons and EMP disruptors designed to disable rogue vessels. Captain Gwyn ordered evasive maneuvers. The Pioneer 1 was lightly armed, but humanity's ingenuity shone. Using a combination of erratic flight paths, improvised electronic countermeasures, and sheer human grit, they evaded capture. But the Accord saw this as rebellion. The Accord ships fired warning blasts, then targeted strikes. The Pioneer 1 took damage but managed to send a distress call back to Earth. Humanity's unpredictable war. Back on Earth, the news of the first contact skirmish shattered illusions of peaceful expansion. The UN Space Command scrambled, sending reinforcements with experimental weapons and AI-assisted tactics. What followed was not a typical space war, but something far more chaotic. Human pilots adapted in ways alien commanders could not predict. Their ships moved erratically, dodging with instinct and imagination rather than protocol. Ground troops, when deployed to planets under Accord control, fought with a ferocity born of desperation and hope. The Accord's war simulations, which predicted quick subjugation of humanity, failed spectacularly. Ambassador Aerotel's report. In a private briefing, Ambassador Aerotel presented a report to the Accord High Council. "Humanity is unlike any other species we have encountered. They are not just wild, they are ingenious, resilient, and disturbingly persistent. Their military tactics defy logic, and their social cohesion is built on bonds of loyalty and defiance, not rigid laws. We cannot simply contain them. They will not bow. A council elder, a vast crystalline being named Verzal, responded, then they must be controlled or eliminated. Their unpredictable nature threatens the very fabric of our order. Aerotel nodded grimly. The sooner we act, the better. The turning point, humanity's declaration. Humanity, for its part, had no desire to destroy the Accord or dominate the stars. They wanted only to survive and explore. But the Accord's fear drove it to war. On Earth, Commander Mira Kessler, then a young officer, gave a speech that would become legendary. We do not ask for your acceptance. We do not seek your permission. We are human. We fight not because we want war, but because we will never kneel to fear. The stars belong to all of us, and we will protect our home with every breath. This defiant spirit spread through Earth's defenses and colonies alike. Humanity did not just fight with technology. They fought with passion, unpredictability, and an unyielding will to protect. The aftermath of first contact. The Galactic Accord withdrew temporarily, shocked and wary. But the damage was done. The stars had changed. Humanity was no longer an isolated species on a blue planet. They were a rising force. And the Accord vowed, next time, humanity would not get away so easily. Epilogue of the chapter. A whisper from the void. As the final transmissions of the Pioneer 1 faded, a shadow drifted in the dark between stars, a presence watching, ancient and hungry. It had waited eons, and now, stirred by humanity's defiant light, it would awaken. The void between stars was not silent. Even in the cold blackness, signals echoed, whispers of ancient machines, urgent orders, distant gunfire. Orbiting a fading sun at the edge of human-controlled space stood Heaven's Gate, humanity's last fortress in the borderlands. It was not just a station, it was a symbol of defiance, of resilience, and of the raw will of a species that refused to vanish. The last bastion. Heaven's Gate was a sprawling orbital fortress the size of a small city, constructed around the skeleton of an old starship graveyard. Its outer hull was battered by decades of meteoroid impacts, space debris, and skirmishes with the Galactic Accord's patrols. The station housed tens of thousands of personnel, scientists, engineers, soldiers, and civilians, and it served as both a shield and a warning. To the Accord, it was a thorn. To humanity, it was a promise. No one will push us back. Commander Mira Kessler. In the command center of Heaven's Gate, Commander Mira Kessler stared at the holoscreens glowing with data from distant sensors. Her sharp eyes scanned the incoming fleet signatures, the holographic map showing dozens of ships emerging from a nearby wormhole. They were here. Mira was not new to war. Born on Mars during the second wave of colonization, she had grown up under fire, trained in survival, tactics, and command. But this was the biggest fight of her life. The Accord's armada was not just a raid, it was an invasion. Status report, Mira demanded, voice steady but charged. Lieutenant Chun, her communications officer, replied quickly. The Accord fleet has assembled just beyond sensor range. Heavy cruisers, carriers, and the new biomechanical dreadnoughts. The ones we've only seen in simulations. They're moving fast, Commander. Myra's jaw clenched. Prepare the station for Battle Readiness Alpha. Activate all defense turrets and deploy drone swarms. The protocols. Heaven's Gate was more than metal and machinery. It was a crucible of humanity's ingenuity. Over decades, the station's command had developed what was known only as the Heaven's Gate Protocol, a series of contingency plans blending cutting-edge technology, psychological warfare, and sheer human unpredictability. Unlike the rigid, protocol-driven fleets of the Galactic Accord, Heaven's Gate's defense relied heavily on improvisation and innovation. If the Accord expected to face a machine, they were about to face a storm of human will. Mira activated the protocols herself, a sequence that triggered lockdowns, reconfigured the station's energy grid, and unleashed the first wave of defense drones. Her fingers danced over the control console with practiced ease. The station awakens. Every bulkhead hummed to life. artificial gravity field stabilized. Automated repair bots scurried through corridors, patching hull breaches and reinforcing shields. The station's AI, an ancient but trusted system named Aegis, began predictive battle calculations, feeding data directly to Myra's neural interface. Aegis, status of external defense grid, Mira ordered. Outer turrets operational at 95% efficiency. Drone swarms fully deployed. Energy reserves sufficient for 3 hours of sustained combat. Aegis responded in a calm, metallic voice. Mira breathed deeply. The odds were not in their favor, but humanity had survived worse. The human factor. In the war rooms, specialists monitored the unfolding situation. Captain Juno Reyes, leader of the hacker unit, was busy cracking the Accord's communication encryption, trying to gain any strategic advantage. They're sending coded commands to the dreadnoughts. Looks like synchronized swarm tactics, Juno reported, eyes flicking over the rapidly changing data streams. But there's something else, a secondary signal, unencrypted, but strange, almost like a beacon. Mira frowned. Could it be a trap or a call for reinforcements? Juno replied grimly. Memories of the past. Despite the chaos, Myra's mind briefly drifted to the past, her training on Mars, her first missions in the outer colonies, and the bitter lessons learned from earlier skirmishes with the Accord. Every loss had sharpened humanity's edge. She remembered her father's words. We don't just fight to win. We fight so that others may live. That was the heart of the Heaven's Gate protocol. Not just metal and firepower, but sacrifice and defiance. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology, but its heart. The incoming assault. Sensors suddenly flared red. The first wave of Accord warships accelerated towards the station. Plasma cannons charging. Myra's voice was steady but fierce. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. The massive station trembled as the first salvo hit, setting off controlled explosions to minimize damage. Defensive turrets opened fire, bright tracer beams streaking into the void. The Accord's ships responded with relentless precision, unleashing biomechanical drones that swarmed the station's exterior like locusts. These drones were capable of assimilating metal and energy, converting the station's defenses into fuel for their assault. The cost of resistance. The battle was brutal and unforgiving. Corridors shook as explosions rocked the station's core. Power flickered, and emergency lights cast long shadows. Still, the people of Heaven's Gate held fast. In the mess halls, soldiers shared quiet moments of resolve. Engineers patched bulkheads. Medics prepared for the inevitable. Mira moved through the station, her presence a steadying force. She spoke to her crew, not with empty promises, but with the raw truth of survival and hope. We don't just survive this. We win. Because this station, this crew, this fight, this is humanity's future. A new threat emerges. Amid the chaos, the strange beacon Juno detected pulsed stronger. Suddenly, a new fleet emerged through a secondary wormhole. A horde of twisted ships unlike anything seen before, neither fully organic nor machine. They belonged to no known faction. Myra's eyes narrowed. Unknown vessels. No identification. Aegis's voice cut in. Warning. Unknown fleet approaching rapidly. Threat level. Critical. Mira knew then this was no longer just a battle against the Accord. Something far older, far darker was awakening. The resolve. As Heaven's Gate prepared to face this unknown enemy, Mira stood on the observation deck, staring at the dying star around which the station orbited. The sun's pale light cast eerie shadows on the hull, a reminder of the fragility of all things. But humanity would not fade. With a clenched fist and steely determination, she whispered, "If they want to test us, they'll see what it means to awaken a human." The war for Heaven's Gate had begun. The stars beyond Heaven's Gate held secrets older than any living civilization. While humanity fought to hold its place against the Galactic Accord, something else stirred in the darkness, something that predated even the oldest Accord myths. A presence buried in the void, waiting patiently through eons for the right moment to awaken. The strange fleet, the unknown fleet that had emerged through the secondary wormhole, was like nothing humanity or the Accord had ever encountered. Their ships were grotesque, seeming to pulse with a strange bioluminescent light beneath chitinous plates that shimmered in and out of phase with reality. In the command center of Heaven's Gate, Commander Mira Kessler and her officers stared at the holographic projection of the alien armada. They aren't following any known battle formations, Lieutenant Chen observed. Their movements are erratic, almost chaotic. Captain Juno Reyes' fingers flew over her console as she attempted to decrypt whatever signals the fleet emitted. There's an ancient pattern in their signal, something I can't fully parse. It's not technological, it's biological. Some kind of neural network. Mira nodded grimly. We've heard stories, rumors from deep space probes about the forgotten, species wiped out before the Accord formed, erased from history. The lost civilization. Deep within the archives of Heaven's Gate, Dr. Elias Voss, a xenologist and historian, prepared to brief the command staff. His specialty was ancient civilizations, those that had vanished without trace, leaving only faint echoes. Standing before a group of officers, he began. The species we are encountering may be descendants, or perhaps remnants, of a civilization that existed millions of years ago. They were called the Silther by myth, but their true name is lost. The Silther were once masters of bioengineering, melding organic life with technology in ways we can barely comprehend. They believed in living machines, creatures grown rather than built, and civilizations that were alive in the literal sense. Mira absorbed this grim history. And what happened to them? Scholars believe their civilization collapsed due to internal strife and the very nature of their bioengineered technology, which turned against them. The collapse was catastrophic, and all evidence was purged from most galactic records. The beacon's origin. Juno interrupted the briefing, pointing to her screen. Commander, I've traced the strange beacon's origin to the core of the enemy fleet's lead ship. It's emitting a signal that's rewriting our sensors' feedback loops, some kind of bioneural interference. This is beyond anything we've seen before, Mira said, voice tight with concern. If they're rewriting our systems, it could mean infiltration, sabotage, or worse. Aegis, the station's AI, interfaced directly with the team. Preliminary analysis suggests the beacon serves as a control node, synchronizing the entire fleet's hive mind. Humanity's forgotten roots. As the briefing concluded, Mira found herself alone in the station's library, a vast archive of human history and alien artifacts collected over decades. Her fingers traced an ancient manuscript, a relic discovered in an archaeological dig on Earth's moon centuries ago. It spoke of a hidden lineage, ancient human tribes whose DNA contained fragments of alien origin. Could humanity itself be connected to the Silther? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. The awakening. Suddenly, a tremor shook Heaven's Gate. Alerts blared across the station. Enemy boarding pods detected. Chen announced urgently. They're attempting to breach the outer hull. Myra's heart raced. The Silther's bioengineered warriors were not just ships. They were living organisms, capable of infiltration and infection. Deploy the countermeasures, Mira ordered. Seal off all vulnerable sections and mobilize the defense squads. The battle within. The boarding pods crashed onto the station's surface, disgorging creatures that moved with deadly speed and uncanny intelligence. The station's soldiers engaged them in brutal close combat. Each enemy seemingly an extension of the hive mind, adapting rapidly to human tactics. In the corridors, engineers worked furiously to repair breaches, while medics treated wounded personnel amid the chaos. Mira herself took up a pulse rifle, joining the firefight as the station's defenders pushed back wave after wave of attackers. A message from the past. During a brief lull, Juno intercepted a fragment of alien communication that seemed distinct from the hive mind's commands. Translated roughly, it read, "We are the seed of what was lost. We come to reclaim what was stolen. Humanity holds the key." Mira exchanged a glance with Juno and Elias. If humanity held the key, it meant their bloodline or technology was tied to this ancient threat. The human spark. That night, Mira found herself staring out into the infinite stars, pondering the future. For centuries, humanity had dreamed of exploring the stars, of becoming masters of their destiny. But the truth was more complicated. The very nature of their existence might be intertwined with the forgotten past of the galaxy's deadliest civilization. The war was no longer just about survival against the Accord. It was about understanding who humanity truly was and what that meant for the future of all life in the galaxy. The war raging around Heaven's Gate was not just a battle of weapons and technology. It was a clash of ideologies, of broken treaties, and long-buried grudges. Humanity's desperate stand against the Galactic Accord and the ancient Silther threat had fractured what little unity existed among the starfaring civilizations. The fate of the galaxy now rested on fragile alliances and impossible choices. The Galactic Accord's War Council. In a massive War Council chamber aboard the Accord's flagship Imperium, Admiral Lorik Valen sat surrounded by his top commanders. The chamber's walls glowed with strategic holomaps, tracking the movements of Heaven's Gate and the mysterious Silther fleet. Valen's face was grim, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. The Accord had grown powerful through order and discipline, but the appearance of the Silther had shattered their carefully maintained control. "We underestimated them," Valen said. "The humans have proven far more resilient than we imagined. And this new threat, these Silther, are something beyond our models." A general replied, "Our forces are stretched thin. We cannot afford to fight a two-front war against both the humans and this alien fleet." Valen nodded slowly. "Then we must consider an alliance with the humans, a desperate proposal." Meanwhile, aboard Heaven's Gate, Mira received a secure transmission from the Accord's command. The message was brief, direct, requesting emergency talks, proposed temporary ceasefire, and alliance against the Silther threat. Myra's heart pounded. Trusting the Accord had never been easy, especially after years of brutal conflicts and betrayals. But the alternative was extinction. In the council chamber, she weighed the risks. To accept meant opening the gates to old enemies. To refuse meant fighting an impossible war alone. "We need to hear them out," Mira said at last. "For now, survival is the priority." The meeting, a neutral asteroid station, far from any contested space, was chosen for the historic meeting. The tense silence in the conference room was thick with suspicion. Admiral Valen and Commander Kessler faced each other across the polished metal table, flanked by their respective aides. Valen broke the silence. "The Silther threaten all life in this sector. We cannot defeat them alone. Only by combining our strengths can we hope to survive." Mira met his gaze steadily. "And what guarantees do we have that the Accord will honor this alliance?" Valen's eyes flickered with genuine resolve. "Our codes and honor may be flawed, but this threat demands more than politics. It demands unity, uneasy allies." The alliance was forged, but trust was a scarce commodity. Soldiers from both sides eyed each other warily as joint patrols and intelligence sharing began. Inside Heaven's Gate, Juno Reyes worked closely with Accord cyber operatives to analyze Silther communications. Despite the political tension, their shared urgency forged grudging respect. However, pockets of dissent simmered. Some human factions saw the Accord as oppressors, others viewed the Silther as a cleansing force. Similarly, within the Accord ranks, hardliners opposed any cooperation with humanity. The threat grows. Back in orbit, the Silther fleet advanced, their tendrils of bioorganic ships probing defenses with relentless adaptability. Sensors aboard Heaven's Gate detected something new, a massive bioconstruct emerging from the depths of the Silther fleet, a living dreadnought larger than any starship previously encountered. Myra's voice was steady, but urgent. "Prepare for impact. This battle will decide the future of our worlds." The heart of the Alliance. In the tense calm before the storm, Mira and Valen met privately. "We're stronger together, but history doesn't forget," Mira said. "If we survive this, what then?" Valen sighed. "Then we rebuild. Maybe even redefine what it means to be galactic." For the first time, they allowed themselves a flicker of hope. The uneasy alliance between humanity and the Galactic Accord was fragile, held together by necessity and fear. But if there was one thing that Commander Mira Kessler and Admiral Lorik Valen agreed on, it was that victory would require understanding the enemy in ways no battle could reveal. The Silther, the forgotten architects of bioengineering horror, were more than just a fleet. They were a living enigma. To unravel their secrets, a team would have to venture into the heart of their territory, a perilous journey into darkness that promised answers or annihilation. The mission briefing. In the dimly lit war room of Heaven's Gate, Mira stood before a holographic star map dotted with red and blue markers. The target was a remote Silther base hidden within a dense nebula known as the Abyss. Intel suggests the Silther used this base as a neural nexus to coordinate their hive mind, Mira explained. Disrupting it could cripple their fleet's cohesion. Admiral Valen, standing beside her, added, "It's also the likely origin of the bioneural beacon we detected. Capturing or destroying it may be our best chance to turn the tide." The team would be small, an elite squad combining human and Accord specialists, blending ground combat, hacking expertise, and xenobiology knowledge. The team assembles. Mira scanned the faces of her chosen operatives. Lieutenant Chin, tactical expert and close combat specialist, known for his calm under pressure. Dr. Elias Voss, xenologist and historian, eager to witness the ancient bioengineering firsthand. Juno Reyes, cyber warfare ace, who had cracked pieces of the Silther's neural code. Captain Lyrical, a stoic Accord officer skilled in alien tech and diplomacy. And Mira herself, leading the mission with a mixture of determination and guarded hope. Each carried the weight of their own doubts and fears, but all understood the stakes. Success could save millions. Failure meant death and chaos. Into the abyss, the small strike cruiser Resolute slipped silently into the shadowed nebula. Outside the viewport, clouds of swirling gas shimmered with ghostly blues and purples, illuminated by distant stars. Myra's heart beat steadily, steady as the Resolute navigated the treacherous currents of plasma storms and electromagnetic interference. The nebula was a natural trap, a perfect hiding place for the Silther's dark secret. Inside the ship, the team ran final checks on their suits and weapons. The tension was palpable, every glance and gesture heavy with unspoken questions. The Silther base. Emerging from the nebula's veil, the Resolute detected the base, a vast organic structure clinging to an asteroid, its surface writhing with bioluminescent tendrils. It looked less like a station and more like a living organism, a grotesque cathedral to the Silther's bioengineering. Sensors showed dense defensive arrays, but the team's priority was the neural nexus at the core. Disabling it would require infiltration, a task for which the team's ground specialists prepared. The descent. Using stealth pods, the team deployed to the asteroid's surface. The pods pierced the organic shell, and the world inside was alien beyond imagination. The ground pulsed softly beneath their feet, alive with subtle movements. Strange flora, fused with biomachinery, hummed with a faint intelligence. Dr. Voss crouched to examine the surface, murmuring, "This is bioengineering at a scale we never thought possible." The Silther's living technology is symbiotic with their environment. Deeper into darkness, the team advanced cautiously, their boots echoing softly in cavernous tunnels lined with pulsating veins of light. Juno monitored their communications, wary of any interference. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the cavern. The neural nexus was near. "Stay sharp," Mira ordered. Ahead, they found the heart of the base, a sprawling chamber filled with bioneural nodes linked by a lattice of tendrils, glowing with eerie life. The nexus and the truth. As Juno interfaced with the neural nodes, the chamber pulsed in response. Images flooded their minds, fragments of the Silther's history. They saw the rise and fall of a civilization obsessed with perfection, a race who sought immortality through merging biology and technology. But the experiment had failed. The hive mind had fractured, splintering into madness and rage. The survivors became what they were now, living weapons driven by ancient pain. Mira felt a chill. They're not just attacking us. They're seeking to reclaim a lost legacy. The attack. Suddenly, alarms blared. The base was alerting. Bioengineered guardians poured into the chamber, their form shifting and writhing with deadly intent. The team fought desperately. Chin's precision and Lyra's alien tech expertise kept them alive, while Juno struggled to overload the nexus. Almost there, Juno shouted, fingers flying over her console. With a final surge, the neural nexus sparked and convulsed. The hive mind's control faltered, and the Guardians faltered. Extraction and reflection. The team raced back to their pods as the base began to collapse. The Resolute streaked out of the nebula, carrying the battered but victorious team. Back aboard Heaven's Gate, Mira watched the distant stars. They had struck a blow against the Silther, but the battle was far from over. The echoes of the past whispered of greater dangers still lurking in the dark. The uneasy truce between humanity and the Galactic Accord, forged in the furnace of mutual necessity, now faced a different kind of enemy, one born not of alien biology or ancient machines, but of distrust and human ambition. While the war with the Silther raged on in the void, a more insidious conflict played out within the walls of Heaven's Gate and the Accord flagship Imperium. Shadows stretched long, hiding betrayal that threatened to unravel everything. A rift in the Alliance. Commander Mira Kessler paced in the quiet after-action room aboard Heaven's Gate. The victory at the Abyss had been hard won, but the cost weighed heavily on her mind. Reports trickled in. Skirmishes on outer colonies, sabotage on supply lines, and whispered rumors of dissent within the Accord ranks. Trust is a fragile thing, Mira muttered, and we've built ours on nothing but necessity. Across the galactic expanse, Admiral Lorik Valen faced similar unrest aboard the Imperium. The Peace Council held behind closed doors, but outside, factions stirred. Hardliners opposed cooperation with humanity. Others feared the Silther threat was a pretext to expand the Accord's power. A secret meeting. Late one evening, Mira received a cryptic message from an unknown source, an encrypted invitation to a meeting in a secluded section of Heaven's Gate. Against protocol, she decided to attend. If there were threats from within, she needed to confront them head-on. The meeting room was dimly lit, shadows clinging to its corners. Waiting was an elderly woman cloaked in the insignia of a forgotten human faction, the Sovereign Circle, a secretive group rumored to have ties to old Earth governments and covert operations. "I've watched your progress," the woman said, voice low but sharp. "The Alliance is fragile. There are those who would see it shattered." Mira narrowed her eyes. "Why come to me?" "Because you are the key," the woman replied. "Your leadership can hold the line, but you must be wary. Your enemies wear many faces, some closer than you think." Seeds of doubt. Back on the Imperium, Valen grappled with his own betrayals. Reports of missing ships and leaked strategic data pointed to a mole within the Accord command. Trust, already thin, fractured further. He convened a covert investigation unit, led by Captain Lyricall, to root out the traitor before critical intelligence fell into Silther hands, or worse, to human factions seeking advantage. Political machinations. Within Heaven's Gate's political chambers, tensions flared. Representatives of various human factions debated fiercely, some advocating for a hardline approach against the Accord, others urging deeper integration. Mira found herself caught between these forces. Her vision was clear, survival through unity. But the fractures ran deep, fueled by centuries of distrust and cultural divides. A shocking revelation. The investigation aboard Imperium uncovered a shocking truth. The mole was none other than a high-ranking Accord official, Commander Syra Malin, who had been secretly communicating with Silther sympathizers. Confronted with evidence, Syra confessed her motivations. The Silther represent the next stage of evolution. Aligning with them is the future. Resisting them is futile. Valen was torn. Punishing her risked provoking open revolt within the Accord. Sparing her threatened the Alliance's security. The personal cost. Myra's own trust was shaken further when Lieutenant Shin, her trusted tactical officer, was implicated in unauthorized communications with a radical human faction skeptical of the Accord. Shin denied betrayal, claiming his actions were intended to protect humanity's sovereignty. But the damage was done. Seeds of mistrust had been planted. A call to vigilance. In a tense council meeting, Mira addressed both human and Accord leaders. "We face enemies on all fronts, not only from beyond the stars, but from within ourselves," she warned. "Betrayal will cost us more than lives, it will cost the future." Her words resonated, but the path forward was uncertain. The gathering storm. As political intrigue and espionage simmered, the Silther fleet massed beyond known space, their tendrils of influence creeping ever closer. The alliance held, but just barely. In the shadows, plots thickened, betrayals waiting to ignite. The silence before the storm was suffocating. From the observation deck of Heaven's Gate, Commander Mira Kessler watched the swirling darkness of space beyond the station's massive shields. The Silther fleet, vast and nightmarish, was closing in. Its bioorganic vessels pulsed with alien life, tendrils stretching like grasping fingers, threatening to smother the fragile hope of the Alliance. This was the moment they had feared, yet prepared for. The siege that would decide not only the fate of the station but the future of humanity and the Galactic Accord itself. Preparing for battle. The station was a hive of activity, every corridor buzzing with the urgency of final preparations. Soldiers checked weapons, engineers recalibrated defenses, and medics readied triage stations. Mira moved through the ranks with a steady resolve, offering words of encouragement and assessing readiness. Beside her, Admiral Lorik Valen coordinated with the Accord commanders. Their alliance was no longer just a fragile agreement. It was a bond forged in fire. "We hold this line," Valen said quietly. "If Heaven's Gate falls, the gateway to our worlds will be lost." Mira nodded. "Then we give them no quarter." The first wave. Without warning, the Silther struck. The sky outside lit up as bioships surged forward, their bodies shifting, weapons emerging like organic cannons. The station shields flared, absorbing the initial onslaught, but cracks began to show. Explosions rocked the outer hull, debris spinning into the void. Lieutenant Chun led a squad in the external defense pods, intercepting boarding tendrils and sabotage crews sent to disable the station's critical systems. Inside the station, alarms echoed through the corridors as Silther bioforms managed to breach the outer defenses. The battle became a brutal fight for every deck, steel and biomatter clashing in a cacophony of violence. Heroism amid chaos. In the chaos, personal stories of courage and sacrifice unfolded. Juno Reyes, the cyber warfare ace, coordinated with the station's AI to isolate infected nodes and restore system control. During a desperate firefight in the control tower, she hacked into a Silther comm channel, revealing their tactical plans to the Alliance forces. Meanwhile, Dr. Elias Voss administered aid to wounded soldiers and studied captured Silther specimens, seeking any weakness to exploit. Mira herself led a counter-assault team to reclaim the breached command center. Her voice rang out over comms, steady and commanding. "Hold the line. For humanity, for the Accord, for the future." The turning tide. As the battle dragged on, the defenders found strength in their unity. The combined human Accord forces adapted quickly to the Silther's tactics, exploiting patterns in their bioweaponry. Captain Lyratal deployed specialized alien tech that disrupted the hive mind's neural signals, sowing confusion among the attacking bioforms. A critical strike team led by Lieutenant Shin targeted the bioconstruct vessels, destroying several key nodes and forcing a temporary retreat. The price of victory. But victory came at a cost. The station's energy reserves dwindled and casualties mounted. The harsh reality of war bore down on every soldier and civilian. Mira received news that a critical shield generator was failing. Without it, the station would be vulnerable to a devastating blow. With no time to lose, she led a daring mission to repair the generator, venturing into the exposed outer ring under heavy fire. The mission was a race against time and death. Myra's team fought through swarms of Silther tendrils, narrowly escaping annihilation as the generator flickered back to life. Aftermath and resolve. The Silther retreated into the dark, their assault blunted but far from broken. The station lay battered but unbroken. The defenders gathered to mourn their dead and tend to the wounded. In a rare moment of quiet, Mira and Valen stood together on the observation deck, gazing out at the star-studded void. "We bought time," Mira said, "but the war is far from over." Valen's eyes were grim but resolute. "Then we prepare for whatever comes next." End of Chapter 7. Would you like to continue with Chapter 8 next, or explore more personal backstories or specific battle details? You said, explain Chapter 8 into 1,500 words. ChatGPT said, certainly, here's an expanded version of Chapter 8. Echoes of the Past, fleshed out in 1,000 to 1,500 words, focusing on discovery, history, and the deepening mystery that ties humanity and the Silther. Chapter 8. Echoes of the Past. The air in the ancient ruins was thick with dust and the weight of forgotten time. After the brutal siege of Heaven's Gate, Commander Mira Kessler led a small expedition to a remote Silther relic site on a desolate moon in the fringes of Silther space. This mission was less about weapons or politics and more about uncovering the truth, a chance to understand the enemy through their own history. If humanity hoped to survive the coming storm, it had to first confront the shadows of the past. Arrival at the ruins. The Resolute descended through a brittle atmosphere, its hull scraping against the abrasive winds that swept across the barren moon. The expedition team, including Mira, Dr. Elias Voss, and Captain Lyricall, prepared their suits and gear. The site before them was a sprawling complex of towering structures, organic and architectural fused in eerie harmony. This was once a center of Silther civilization, Voss explained, voice barely above a whisper as they stepped onto cracked bioconcrete flooring. The walls themselves seem alive, somehow integrating technology and life. The team spread out carefully, aware that the ruins might still harbor dangers, both biological and technological. Unraveling the legacy. Dr. Voss knelt beside a strange relief etched into the wall, illuminated faintly by their headlamps. The imagery told a story of the Silther's rise, how they had transcended their biological limits by merging with their creations. Look here, he said, tracing patterns that resembled a neural map. They sought to become one with their environment, to achieve a collective consciousness. Mira listened, fascinated but wary. The Silther were not mindless beasts, but a civilization whose ambition had twisted into something terrifying. A fragmented mind. As they ventured deeper, Captain Lyra detected faint energy signatures, a dormant bioneural interface. It might still be functional, Lyra said cautiously. The team approached a central chamber where a massive organic console pulsed faintly with latent power. Juno Reyes, the cyber warfare ace who had rejoined the team after recovery, interfaced her portable console with the relic. The chamber hummed, and the walls flickered with holographic echoes, visions from a lost era. They saw glimpses of Silther leaders debating the ethics of their bioengineering, warnings ignored about the dangers of hive mind fragmentation. The warning. Among the flickering images, one stood out, a Silther elder, her features both beautiful and alien, issuing a dire warning. Our pursuit of unity will be our undoing, she intoned. Beware the fractures in the mind. Beware the echoes of pain that spawn monsters. Mira felt a chill. The elder's prophecy was hauntingly clear. What the Silther had become was the result of a tragic hubris. Hidden truths. Juno's hacking revealed more. Coded records that suggested a faction within the Silther had sabotaged their own neural network, fracturing the hive mind intentionally to prevent a tyrannical collective. This was civil war, Mira mused. A broken people fighting to reclaim their individuality. The idea changed everything. The Silther were not merely enemies. They were survivors of their own destruction. The echoes awakened. Suddenly, the ruins trembled. A defensive mechanism had been triggered by their presence. Biological sentinels emerged from the shadows, shifting, living weapons designed to protect the site. The team scrambled to defend themselves, firing both conventional weapons and alien tech. Despite their efforts, the Sentinels adapted quickly, forcing a strategic retreat, a desperate escape. As the team fled back to the Resolute, Mira carried a data pad containing the most crucial fragments of the Silther history. We need to share this, she said. Understanding their past might be the key to ending this war. The Resolute lifted off, leaving the ruins and their dark secrets behind. Reflection and resolve. In the ship's briefing room, the team gathered to analyze their findings. Dr. Voss spoke softly. The Silther's tragedy is a warning, not just for them, but for all who would seek power without wisdom. Mira nodded. We fight a ruthless enemy, but beneath that, a broken civilization. If we can find a way to reach what remains of their reason, maybe we can save both our futures. The mission had shifted. No longer was this just a war of survival. It was a quest for reconciliation, for understanding the echoes of the past that haunted the stars. The victory at Heaven's Gate had been a brutal testament to the resilience of the Human Accord Alliance, but peace remained elusive. Even as the Silther retreated to lick their wounds, a new and more insidious battle brewed within the heart of the Alliance itself. A struggle not fought with plasma and bioweapons, but with whispers, secrets, and betrayal. Commander Mira Kessler sat in the dim glow of the strategy room aboard Heaven's Gate, surrounded by holographic displays of star maps and intelligence reports. The recent revelations from the Silther ruins weighed heavily on her mind, but the immediate danger was no longer just the alien enemy. It was the fractures in her own ranks, unearthing the web of deceit. The station's intelligence officers had uncovered a troubling pattern: communications intercepted between certain human factions and mysterious agents with possible ties to Silther sympathizers. The mole hunt aboard the Imperium had revealed a traitor, but it was becoming clear that this was just the tip of a larger conspiracy. Lieutenant Chen, still under suspicion for his previous unauthorized contacts, was now cooperating with internal investigators to expose the network. Yet the deeper they dug, the more convoluted the web became. Someone is orchestrating this from the shadows, Chen admitted during a tense briefing with Mira and Captain Lyritkal. A faction within the Alliance wants to see it crumble from within. Myra's jaw clenched. For what gain? Chen shook his head. Power, control, fear of losing humanity's sovereignty to alien influence. A secret meeting. Mira decided to confront the threat directly. She arranged a clandestine meeting with a senior member of the Sovereign Circle, the secretive human faction that had first warned her of internal enemies. In a secluded chamber deep within Heaven's Gate, Mira met with Marcus Farr, a man known for his ruthless pragmatism and deep knowledge of political machinations. Commander, Var said, his voice low and sharp, the Alliance is a fragile thing, and some see it as a cage. They believe humanity should rule its own destiny, even if it means breaking old bonds. Myra's eyes narrowed. And you? Var smiled thinly. I want to preserve humanity's future. But to do that, we must root out those who would see us weakened by compromise. Their conversation was tense, a dance of veiled threats and uneasy truths. But it became clear, the factionalism within humanity was as dangerous as the Silther threat itself. Espionage and deception. Back on the Imperium, Captain Lyra Tkal's investigation intensified. She discovered encrypted transmissions hidden in the communications network, messages sent during the height of the siege, coordinating sabotage efforts that had nearly doomed the station. With the help of Juno Reyes, the cyber warfare expert, they traced the origin of the transmissions to a covert cell embedded within the Accord Command, a group determined to sabotage cooperation with humanity. The implications were staggering. The Alliance's greatest threat might come not from outside, but from those sworn to protect it. Trust-tested, Mira confronted Lieutenant Chen privately, her expression stern but not unkind. We need to know who else is involved, she said. Who do you trust? Chen hesitated, then named a handful of officers whose loyalties were questionable. Each name was a potential bombshell. Mira knew the danger. Accusing the wrong person could fracture the fragile alliance irreparably, but silence meant certain destruction. A bold strategy. Deciding to turn the tables, Mira and Valen orchestrated a counteroperation. Using false intelligence, they baited the conspirators into revealing themselves. It was a dangerous gambit. Failure would expose them and accelerate the Alliance's collapse. But the risk was necessary. The sting. The trap was set during a high-level diplomatic meeting on Heaven's Gate. Hidden cameras and encrypted channels captured the conspirators' communications. As suspected, the saboteurs took the bait, attempting to manipulate the flow of reinforcements and critical resources. Mira and Valen moved swiftly, arresting several high-ranking officers and revealing the depth of the conspiracy. Aftermath and uncertainty. The arrests sent shockwaves through the Alliance. Some celebrated the purge of traitors. Others whispered of witch hunts and political overreach. Mira addressed the assembly, her voice resolute. We have faced enemies without and within. This alliance stands not because it is perfect, but because we choose to be better than our fears. But the scars ran deep. The Alliance's unity was tested like never before, and the question lingered. Could it survive the coming trials? The silent threat. As the chapter closed, Mira reflected on the fragile peace. The Silther were regrouping, their dark influence spreading. But the fractures within were just as deadly. In the quiet moments, she wondered if the real war had only just begun. The galaxy held its breath. After months of brutal conflict, internal betrayals, and devastating losses, the Human Accord Alliance faced its most decisive moment. The Silther had returned, more furious and united than ever, their monstrous bioships blotting out stars as they descended toward the core worlds of the Accord. But this time, humanity would not wait behind shields or cower behind fractured alliances. Commander Mira Kessler stood at the helm of the combined fleet aboard the Imperium, a sharp mind racing through every tactical scenario they had devised. This was the final gambit, a bold strike to shatter the Silther hive mind and end the war once and for all. Rallying the forces, the fleet assembled like a living organism, thousands of ships from different worlds forming a vast, shimmering armada. Each vessel bore the scars of past battles, yet all were fueled by a singular purpose: survival and freedom. Myra's voice crackled over the comms, steady and inspiring. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every life touched by this war. We strike at the heart of the hive. We end this nightmare. Admiral Lorik Valen stood beside her, his expression grim but resolute. We have the knowledge. We have the technology. And now, we have the will. The plan. The strategy was as daring as it was dangerous. Drawing from the discoveries made in the Silther ruins, Juno Reyes had developed a cyber weapon, a neural disruptor designed to fracture the hive mind from within, exploiting the ancient rift that had once torn the Silther civilization apart. The disruptor would be delivered by a specialized strike team led by Lieutenant Shun, tasked with infiltrating the flagship of the Silther swarm, the Hive Sovereign. If successful, the hive mind would collapse into chaos, rendering the Silther vulnerable to a full assault. The assault begins. As the fleet approached the Silther's dark expanse, space itself seemed to tense. The first salvo erupted in a dazzling display of light and fury. Plasma cannons screamed, bio-cannons thrashed, and the void shook with the violence of their clash. Mira directed the fleet with calm precision, weaving defensive formations and orchestrating devastating counterattacks. Captain Lyra Thales' alien tech squads disabled enemy bioshields, while Dr. Elias Voss coordinated medical teams to treat the wounded in real time. Into the heart of darkness. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Chin's strike team deployed in stealth pods, slipping past the swarm's outer defenses. Inside the Hive Sovereign, the atmosphere was alien and oppressive, walls pulsing with organic matter, corridors alive with the faint hum of the collective mind. Chin's team moved swiftly, avoiding detection, planting the disruptor deep within the hive's neural core. But the Silther were not idle. Bio-guardians emerged, creatures of nightmare born from twisted genetics, and the team fought with desperate tenacity, sacrifice and triumph. In the critical moments, as the disruptor activated, Chin made the ultimate choice. Recognizing the hive's neural core would self-destruct to protect itself, he ensured the disruptor's signal was amplified, even at the cost of his own life. His final message to Mira was brief but powerful: for humanity, for the future. The hive convulsed, bioships faltered, and the collective screams of the Silther echoed through space as their unity shattered, turning the tide. With the hive mind broken, the fleet launched a coordinated offensive. Silther vessels floundered, disoriented and vulnerable. Mira ordered the final push. The battle raged with unparalleled ferocity, but the Alliance's combined strength prevailed. As the last bioship fell, a fragile silence settled over the void. Aftermath and renewal. The cost was staggering: ships lost, lives sacrificed, worlds scarred. But the war was over. Mira stood on the bridge of the Imperium, watching the dawn of a new era. The Alliance had survived, not just by firepower, but through understanding, sacrifice, and unity. In the war's aftermath, dialogue began between the remnants of the Silther, survivors seeking peace and redemption. Humanity faced a choice: to rebuild in fear and division, or to embrace a future forged from the hard lessons of war. A new dawn. Myra's final words in the chapter echoed across the fleet. We fought the darkness, and we won, not because we were perfect, but because we dared to believe in something greater. Together, we will build a galaxy where all can thrive. As the stars shone bright once more, the promise of hope and renewal burned in every heart.